I'm really excited to moderate this panel today on basically AI and innovation and adoption, and looking at both the challenges and the opportunities that AI brings to the table in the innovation space. We have a great group of panelists today representing innovation. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll start with Ian. But just a quick introduction on me and why I am the moderator of this panel. Beyond being a board member of IPAS, I'm also a lifelong innovator and entrepreneur. I've done 10 startups now, spanning 60 plus countries and impacting billions of people around the world. I think when people look at innovation, they forget that we are the ones, and I say this humbly, that invent fire, right? And so that's important on that side of the coin. But we're also, part of a larger system, an ecosystem. So if it was only us in the world, we'd probably burn the world down with that fire. I find it fascinating to see how innovation is being transformed with AI, and our panelists are on the cutting edge of that. So we'll start with Ian. Ian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tiffany. Thanks to Bruce and others for having me here. I'm Ian McClure. I lead innovation for the University of Kentucky on the university side, as well as our health system. We have 6 hospitals, all under one roof at our university as an academic medical center. And a couple of years ago, I was also asked by our president to lead our enterprise-wide AI strategy, both for our entire university as well as for our health system and the 11,000 employees that work for the health system, 72,000 people in all. So I'll talk more about that. Just briefly about my background. Before I came to the University of Kentucky, I started my career as a corporate M&A attorney. Left that to go start a company in the intellectual property space, based in Chicago, intellectual property licensing. Did that for 6 or so years. Went to an investment bank, did IP-rich M&A for a number of years, and then got recruited to the university side in 2016, where I have been for the last 10 years, building our entire technology transfer, commercialization, and now all of our innovation entrepreneurship programs and our entire AI strategy, which we call the Commonwealth AI Transdisciplinary Strategy, a enterprise-wide, very holistic framework and approach to doing AI, from resources, training, the entire governance structure, both in management as well as data integrity, data management. So I'll get more into that as we go. I think just one statement that'll probably be a premise for everything I say up here. I like hot takes as it relates to AI, certainly an AI enthusiast, but this is a moment in time, and I share this with everyone that I can, especially our institution, through all of the town halls and roundtables that I have done for the past couple of years at UK. This is a moment in time like we have maybe only seen a couple of times in our generation as it relates to an emerging technology, but even way different than we have seen before from an uptake adoption level, 14x the adoption of the internet over its first 3 years. So it's just an amazing evolutionary time, but also a time for incredible opportunity.
Massyl.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with what Ian said. I feel like this is really nothing short of an industrial revolution, and I feel very privileged and lucky to basically have a front row seat to see all of this unfold before our eyes. It's definitely a very special time to be alive, and I feel like the early to mid 20s will be studied for generations to come. So my name is Massyl Malem. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Patent Plus AI. My background is as a researcher at the intersection of electrical engineering and chemical engineering. I did work at Duke University of Connecticut, and then I turned into intellectual property specialist, where I had the great displeasure of using the different tools and solutions available for folks doing patent searching. So my best friend and I started our company, Patent Plus AI, to offer the industry better tools and better solutions to help them perform patent searching tasks. And this was back in 2020, 2021. So before AI was cool before, the revolution started. So, like that's why I say, I feel very privileged to have gotten the opportunity to see this, industry from, the very beginning to where it's at right now and where it's gonna, go in the next couple of years.
Thank you. David, well, I was going to share mine with you, David.
No.
Yeah, why don't we keep
Okay.
that microphone on that
I'm David Mess. I'm from Ohio State University. I work in the tech transfer office. I'm the director of licensing. I also teach a couple courses in the master's program at the law school in intellectual property and technology transactions. I get the honor of working with a lot of the faculty and researchers at Ohio State who are working on commercializing AI, their inventions, both both software as well as the infrastructure behind a lot of AI. And so, happy to be here to talk about this.
Great. So why don't we start where David left off, since you were talking about the commercialization of AI, sort of plays a bit to the last panel around copyright and who's the owner, like how do you figure out who owns the copyright, who has the right to commercialize it. So you're looking at this from a portfolio basis. How are you dealing with that issue with regards to the opportunity of commercializing innovation that's been co-created with AI?
So I know we have a lot of work to do in terms of being able to track and audit how the inventions are being made to make sure that that there is actually a significant contribution that's happening from a human. So when we talk about adoption of AI and how we integrate it into our workflows, we really are pretty cautious about how we deal with risks such as, conception and contribution, and then, in the patent area, the claims and analyzing those claims. So it's a topic that we do have some work to do, and it'll be exciting as that evolves.
And you, Ian, same question.
Yeah, so AI is changing the way that we can think about what we can do with our intellectual property. So, for example, one of the sort of philosophically, I'm of the belief that one of the biggest culture shifts that we are seeing now, and that we will see over the next 3-4 years through this transformational era, is what I call the builder mentality, which is anyone who didn't think they were a builder, but they were a researcher, is now shifting that thinking, because they're going from just researching and data outputs, so just like proving an idea, into, I can build that idea into a product by vibe coding it overnight, right? As an example. So we have faculty. So 3 years ago, almost right at the same time that these generative AI tools started to come online, we launched a program that we call social innovation. So it's a team that is focused on innovations that are mission-based, societal impact focused, but not necessarily what you would consider typically as deep tech, research-based IP. It is research-based, but it's coming out of our College of Education, our College of Public Health, our College of Social Work, right? And typically, these would be things like trainings, like community trainings, right? Systems for community impact, manuals, research tools, that now those people with AI are able to immediately turn those things into a software app or something that can incredibly more impactfully disseminate the thing that they've been researching, or thinking that it's just a training tool is now a tool that can be reached by anyone in the world. Once you productize that thing, you can send it anywhere. So whereas before, the training that you developed could only be offered where you could touch and be, right? So this builder mentality is changing everything that we're thinking about how we can commercialize this kind of IP. And it's the same for, we do a lot of drug discovery work. So think about, we have a lot of people that have been developing for years diagnostic tools, right? Tools that help diagnose and or identify the right therapy, the right treatment, the right approach. Typically, those diagnostic tools have been, maybe it's an algorithm, Maybe it's some new benchmarks, something that we might have even patented. But now, when they come up with this diagnostic tool, you can almost overnight productize that diagnostic tool into a software-enabled application or research tool that can be used by others. So anyway, it's an amazing time for us. We're having a lot of fun with this sort of builder mentality and what it's changing and how we think about the ability to productize within a university tech transfer. Is typically you discover the thing, we'll help you move that thing out. We're actually getting closer to you build the thing, we'll help you actually productize it, and then we'll help you get it out. So.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting times. And, I know when we were talking about copyright and in the entertainment space, we were worried about the theft of human genius. I mean, I forget who did the quote where he said, the medium is the message. We were just talking about this. I think the challenge in the entertainment space is the medium becomes the art. As a creator, so I use code to create tech companies, I'll use paint to create art, I'm executive producer and creator of a show that's going on tour. So to me, any medium is something that I can bring into reality. This is the first time the medium has the ability to also be the art. When you look at innovation, though, I think we don't have that challenge as much for people that are in certain specialized spaces. If you've ever used AI, to me, the human still rules, the hallucinations, et cetera. So I don't think the mindset should be that it's like a movie where AI can completely replace humans. If you know the specialized area and you use AI, you know that half of it needs to be guided by human. We call it hallucinations, but many times it's lying. Like if a human said something so confidently, repeatedly, while you're challenging it. But one of the interesting things that Ian had brought up was around the patentability, right? And these creations and the lack of friction going to market and going to reality. And also when you're in these licensing and tech transfer departments, you of course immediately go for the patents. And so that brings us to Massyl, whereas his company, maybe you can first talk a bit about the patent process, I'm sure, just at a top level for people that aren't as familiar with it, and how you are, in a way, from my perspective as a small tech creator, right, democratizing that process for people like me. Please, Massyl.
Absolutely. And yeah, to actually piggyback off of what Ian said, I think, and to answer your question, Tiffany, I think AI really has significantly lowered the barrier of entry to all types of folks to claim their part and claim their part in intellectual property, in innovation, and also in entrepreneurship. So I would say yes, AI has allowed researchers to become builders, but it also has allowed builders to become entrepreneurs and CEOs and create not just products but also companies in ways that were unimaginable even in the 2010s or the early 2000s. And I would say right now, what used to take 10 people to build a company could be done by 1 or 2 people who just know how to use artificial intelligence system. But at the end of the day, the key word there is use, because humans are not going anywhere. Human expertise is not going anywhere. AI is not replacing humans. It's only a tool, and a tool is only as good as the person utilizing the tool. So there's a lot of conversation about how humans and AI collaborate with each other. And for us, we came up with our vision for this collaboration back in 2021 in what we called the 10-80-10 rule. So this is how we envision the most productive and the best type of collaboration that really highlights the skills of humans. We believe the human expert operator really belongs in the first 10% of a project and the final 10% of a project, whereas AI really shines in the middle 80%. So what does that look like from like a patentability or patentability search perspective? Fundamentally, we decided to build an autonomous system that performs searching on behalf of humans, not because it's cheaper or faster, but because it's better than humans. Each patent is a 50-page long, dense technical document filled with scientific and legal jargon, sometimes on purpose, because lawyers, as we know, are sociopaths. No, I'm just kidding. But patents are incredibly tedious and difficult and boring to read. And then you have to multiply that by hundreds, if not thousands of documents that a human is expected to just sit there and sort through all of them and find that one piece of, the needle in a haystack. On the other hand, AI is primed for this. It is very good at processing complex data ad nauseum, x100, x1000. What humans are very good at is the first 10%, which is strategizing, deciding a strategy and guiding the system, telling the system what it is that they want or need. And they're very good at the final 10%, which is decision making and making judgments based on the data and the conclusions that were made by artificial intelligence. So that's how our clients interact with the system. They give instructions, they set their strategy, and then AI does the 80% of the bulk work, of the tedious, the grunt work under the supervision of the human, and the human comes back at the final 10% to make decisions. Do I file? Do I not file? Do I license here? Do I invalidate? Et cetera. Because that's where humans really shine. Abstract thinking, decision making, and the strategizing, not the tedious stuff in between.
Can I add something?
Please, Ian.
Sorry, you tell me the rules. I'll keep jumping in. So
Baseball.
Okay. As we think about, so this is why I was so excited to talk to Dr. B after his talk that he just gave a minute ago. So this morning, I'm on the board of the Center for American Entrepreneurship. We do it's an organization that has existed for the past 10 years to advocate for entrepreneurship policy, mostly at the federal level. And in our board meeting this morning, we had a whole session to talk about the impact of AI on entrepreneurship, but then also the connectivity between that and the need for intellectual property education. And so let me draw the string together, because as we think about what we were just saying is this boom we're lowering the barrier to entrepreneurship. We're lowering the barrier to productization. So now anyone can make a product overnight, which means you are overnight also an entrepreneur if you care about marketing that product at all. So immediately there is a boon, and also for the Center for American Entrepreneurship's perspective, a whole new constituency that we have to sort of think about representing, right? High school kids, earlier than high school kids, who are vibe coding apps overnight and now thinking about entrepreneurship before they even get to college, right? So the issue with that is, and I talked to Bruce about this a few weeks ago, so I come from the belief, certainly, that in this world where now anyone can be a product developer, you are also now a product owner immediately, right? To be an owner of anything, as we know, intellectual property are rights, okay? I know some people say they're franchise rights, they're rights. So intellectual property rights exist so that you can have boundaries around what you own, who doesn't own it, and how you can give people the rights to use that thing if there's going to be some kind of a collaboration or a partnership via license or otherwise. So if we think that over the next year, there's going to be millions of new product owners, which there are, right? Intellectual property becomes that much more important, period, but also the education of this whole new constituency about what intellectual property is and means to their new ownership of this product, right? So what Dr. B was saying this morning, so important, right? And this morning, our entire board meeting was focused on how do we now advocate for new policy at the K through 12 level around entrepreneurship, intellectual property education, because fifth graders are product owners now, right? Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you. No, I absolutely agree. And hand in hand with that, especially for the IP attorneys that we have in the audience, is modernizing intellectual property. So I'll let you all think about this, including the audience, because I don't have the answer to it. I have the question for it, which is there a new type of intellectual property that we need to consider, a new category of intellectual property for the where we find ourselves in society at the moment? So that's the big question to be thought about. David, I'm not going to put you on the spot, for everyone to think about. It was just triggered in hearing some of the things that Massyl and Ian were saying. And then the second question, which I do think we should have the answer to and wholeheartedly pursue, coming off of where Ian finished with policy, is we definitely need to modernize policy around the current types of intellectual property, policy and laws around the current type of intellectual property that we have. We have all this, society's being transformed by AI. Everything's becoming more complex because humans have the ability to be more complex, like every human being does. Currently, I'm getting my Master's of Engineering in Systems Engineering, which is the engineering of complexity. It's aerospace. It's, all the, it's every type of, we call ourselves the everything bagel of engineering. And typically, that would be a special field of study. But now I find systems thinking and systems engineering, so to speak, in everyday life. So we're going to be having more and more innovations. We're going to be having more and more complexity. We're going to be having more and more products from a more diverse group of people. It's not just the front end and the education. I'll say I filed for my first patent at 19 many years ago. And with most great things that are done, that people immediately try to steal them, even if you have a patent. Patents are not defensible for a regular person in small tech. So I am going to throw that to you, David. Like in the context of all this new innovation and AI and more regular people like me doing innovative things and creating products, and you probably see this when you're doing licensing. Now, how do we improve the defensibility of this intellectual property when it's not big tech or big pharma against big tech and big pharma? Here you go. Easy question.
I think it's really just focusing on the fundamentals of the intellectual property, and making sure you nail the novelty and the non-obviousness and the utility, and really just focusing on creating a solid asset that can withstand pressure, and then can be licensed there from there.
Have you seen any way that we can leverage this new tech to do that in a similar way to what Massyl's doing at the entry point? Is there a way, once you have it, are you seeing anything, and I'll pass that to the two of you as well, to leverage this new tech to also defend your rights?
Probably less defend and more just disseminate it, identify new partners. We see it, AI being adopted throughout the licensing process, from sort of invention intake through marketing, and then with deal making. But less probably on the the enforcement and litigation side.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Ian. I feel like you have more to say this about than me, but I would say for us, obviously, we're focused really heavily on the initial part of the life cycle, with searching, prior art searching, invalidity searching, even freedom to operate, which I really think freedom to operate searches belong in R&D. Patent search is an integral part of R&D because it just makes your inventing process a lot more efficient when you know it's exactly what's out there. It makes the quality of the patents a lot better when you understand the landscape more, understand what the competitors are doing. But I would say one way AI is lowering the barrier of entry a little bit when it comes to the licensing end and knowing what to pursue, who to pursue with your patents, is obviously through infringement searches and seeing what technologies out there might be infringing your patents. Those are probably very good people to talk to that could be interested in licensing your patent and making use of it, or folks who've had their applications rejected and your patent was cited as a reason for rejection, or similar patents were cited for reasons of rejection. Those are very good people to talk to potentially help you commercialize your technology, commercialize your intellectual property. Not so much on the enforcement end, but definitely on the commercialization and the licensing end.
Yeah, that's a fascinating discussion, to be honest. So this notion that should we come up with a whole new category of intellectual property to help. Here's how I think it might end up working, and it might take some time to help us do this. So I mentioned, we have this whole new constituency of product owners. Most of them are not going to be able to go and get a patent, right? To your point, which is true. The patent ecosystem, unfortunately, is still a pay to play because of the costs and the time, and it's one where the bigger companies that can pay win. It's been that time. It's been that way for a long time, but we have good examples of emerging markets that have recognized that and have come together to create a runway for the emerging market. And in a lot of cases, that's been done by using standards and patent pools. So think about, H.265, MPEG, 3G, 4G, 5G, all of which had Wi-Fi included, all of which had large interoperability problems, numerous intellectual property owner issues, and the market or the industry realized in order to help the world get access to this amazing best-in-class technology, we're going to have to develop standards, develop a runway through patent pools, and work together. So, I know you're probably thinking right now, well, AI is software and this is vibe coding, and incredibly hard to do that. And we don't even have a settled jurisprudence around patents and AI yet. Totally true. What's going to happen likely is over the next 3 years, we're going to have millions of new products developed by whoever, pumped into places where it's going to be competitive advantage by lead time advantage, access to market through just, access to investors, access to the companies that will eventually put them into sales streams. But we will realize very quickly that you can reproduce these things really quick. Right, and by just as quick as this new AI product, new AI agent can be developed, bigger company that has the sales channels and the intellectual property portfolio will just duplicate it very quickly. So the small inventors, the small product developers, will stop. Well, they'll stop doing it for market use or market applications, unless we realize that those companies have to work together to actually incentivize the world to be their product designer and developers, which is what companies are starting. I just came out of a think tank session with a couple of largest tech companies that are thinking in that manner, like actually where our inventors and employees and our R&D enterprise is what we've been relying on to develop our next products. The world right now can be developing our next products, and we have to actually develop ways to work with them. They're only going to be incentivized to keep doing it if intellectual property reserves rights in the things that they're developing as a product owner, not just a developer. And I think we're going to have to work in ways like emerging markets have come together around standards and patent pools and things like that to continue to incentivize that kind of product development to product ownership for this.
Yeah, just very quickly, also want to add, I think we're going to have a panel about trade secrets later this afternoon, and I think trade secrets for sure are going to make some sort of emergence, for better or worse, in the next decade or so, because from our perspective, for example, we've spent 6 years building, fine-tuning, improving the product, but every lawyer we talk to is that there's no reason for you to pursue a patent because, what you have is not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to reverse engineer it. So I think especially with from the software world with AI, helping you create things in different ways, and it's really a end product and a service in of its own. For example, our deliverables are ready-made reports, a PDF report. You can't know how or where it was made, etc. Trade secrets are for sure going to make some sort of comeback and become more prominent in the recent future.
So that's absolutely right, and I think the way that that's going to be policed as intellectual property rights is the same way that you think about a trademarked product that is currently sold on Etsy or Amazon, where it's actually the responsibility of the marketplace owner, Amazon, for example, to police trademark infringement, counterfeit products, etc. They flag them. They have a whole system to help with keeping the market integrity in place. I think we'll get into a place where trade secrets are policed actually by the big tech companies, realizing that they need to currently incentivize or continue to incentivize the sales of the products being developed.
Yes, and let's not forget, as software people, Massyl, both times I've had to defend software, I've actually used copyright laws for it and got payouts from it. A lot of software engineers and software-based startups don't realize that. And in the same way, a book needs to be fixed form, in a fixed form in order to have automatic copyright, the same for code. And a lot of new entrepreneurs don't realize that. I would have hundreds and hundreds of pages of code printed and stored in at Iron Mountain, and at one point that got multi-million-dollar settlement when it was violated. The patent I would still be trying to fight. So just FYI, we can't forget the basics either. So both Ian and Massyl sort of brought us up to the macro level, so I want to stay up there for a bit. I recently, in December, had a chance to hear the first ever Minister of AI from UAE. He became Minister of AI, I want to say, back in 2017, somewhere around then, prior to COVID. And since then, I think Canada has a Minister of AI that they appointed last year. France now has a Minister of AI. Cabinet level positions, looking at it again from a systems perspective to maximize the opportunity of AI and minimize the challenges of it. So I want to look at that from not just a country level, but also an organizational level. What does that look like at an organizational level from your perspective to maximize the opportunity that you guys are seeing in your various entities, including you, Massyl? I know you're more seeing other people's opportunities, but I'd really be interested in that perspective. Do we need a chief AI officer? I'm a director for a publicly traded company, and we're thinking through a lot of those AI issues right now. What does that look like to you? I know it's an opinion in an optimal situation. I'll start with you, David.
Yeah, I think from a practice standpoint, it's creating areas of low risk where people can experiment and kind of do their own thing, but then in the areas of risk that are important to the organization, layer policy and governance on top of that. So for us, that's in communications with our customers. So making sure that there's human to human interaction that's happening. And then in decision making, anywhere there's decisions that are being made, we want to make sure that people are thinking about AI as decision making framework or decision making infrastructure rather than software, and sort of policing it that way.
Can I just push you a little bit deeper on that and ask the question possibly a different way, which is, what does the future modern optimal organizational structure look like given AI in the mix? Schools, businesses, governments, whatever you want to comment on, home, community.
I'm actually most interested in Ian's response. I think he has a very interesting role at Kentucky. I think that's a great model.
Sure. So I've given this a lot of thought. I think, so when I was asked to set up, I was asked to develop the strategy for the University of Kentucky. We didn't know what that meant at the time. Ultimately, what we found out, and this is in Allison's good talk this morning, she had the 4 major points, and the first one really was like set up the foundation of the governance first before you can take the lid off on everything else to accelerate adoption. And I think that's incredibly important. So every organization that is trying to consider themselves as an AI-first organization has to do that as a first step, right? And governance means a couple of different things. As you just mentioned, and as David just mentioned, governance is governance in decision-making, right? But then also there's governance from a data integrity, data management, measurement of ROI, as Allison pointed out, the financial ROI of the investment. So when we set up our structure at University of Kentucky, ultimately what we've come to is what looks like a large org chart that is sort of broadly matrixed. We have 5 tables of what we consider to be our main functional areas: research, education, healthcare, administration, and student success. Each has a subcommittee. Their job is not to develop policy. I think it's very important that you separate the needs, the challenges, the opportunities, the proposals, that kind of thinking, from the ones who are setting sort of the regulatory framework, the barriers, the policies, the guidelines. We have a whole separate group that we call the Guidelines for Operations group, or the GO group, which is a bit ironic because what they're doing is actually not going. But the subcommittees come up with the ideas that flow up to a decision-making body that can make quick investment decisions, because almost all this is all about investment and ROI. And then you need to have a team in the middle that is the facilitator, that is activating the strategic initiatives, that is building the business cases for the ideas so that the decision-making body can determine if we make this investment, it will return this in efficiencies and human capital savings and whatever else. And so I think you're seeing that, and Allison has seen a lot more organizations doing this than I have. We've benchmarked a number of other universities when we built ours. But it's governance first, so that, and to some people, governance means limiting. It's not. Governance in this case is so that then you can run fast with guardrails in place, but also with different voices represented. Doing this in a university, it's not like a company. We have just such different constituencies we have to serve. Students, administrative staff, faculty, whole different beast. Healthcare workers. So we have 6 hospitals I mentioned, and so our structure encompasses all of them. And then you have in the middle this team that's facilitating it, that I've been building, that is reporting to me. And then alongside the whole thing is a partner. Like a lot of us, we can't do this alone. And if you're an organization of 72,000 people, we need to be able to step into the shoes of one of the 7 or so companies that has been building these models and thinking about these trainings and culture shift, change management episodes for decades. And for us, that was Microsoft. So there's lots I could say there about that. I do think there is a best practice AI first organization governance structure, and last thing I'll say, any such organization, I think the first thing you have to do is just pick philosophically where you are on the spectrum of like caution, risk averse, we'll wait and see, which is fine, versus other end, we're an AI first organization, we're jumping in, we're fine to fail and learn and fail again and learn. And we have chosen this one. Many universities are somewhere in the middle or over here, and that's okay. I think I think as long as you sort of accept the inevitability of this, that you have to set up some kind of a structure so that you're preparing your organization for what's happening.
Thank you, Ian. Massyl, before you comment, I also want to give a heads up to the audience that in a few minutes I'll start taking questions from the audience. So if you have some questions, start thinking about them, because I realize where's Bruce? We still are ending at 3:30, right? Okay. Please, Massyl.
Yeah, and very quickly, I was going to add, I think the higher up you go in the organization, the more that equation I did of 10, 80, 10, the more it shrinks more, because the more you have, the responsibilities are decision making and strategizing, and you need AI less for that. We really need AI is in the trenches, in the R&D, in the execution, etc. But it is very important to have leaders and decision makers who have used the tools so they understand exactly what are the priorities and things to consider when you are, adopting them at scale across the organization. And probably the most important variables to consider when deciding different tools, what to use, where to use, how much to use them, is outside of quality is probably transparency and auditability. Because especially for us in the search space, but across all different types of intellectual domains, we have AI that works essentially behind a black box, where it just gives you an answer and you don't know where the answer comes from. And if you ask the developers where did the answer come from, the answer is we don't know either, because it's just, it's doing math at an incredible scale, and it's, predicting the next word. So it's very hard to be transparent and develop trust outside of just looking at the results and the quality of them. And for us, what we've done, especially when you're working with agents and you have like a team of agents that are performing searches iteratively, collaborating, debating, deciding, etc., is you start to have that record, that track, that all the different conversations that took place, the different decisions that were made at each step of the way. Because for us, an invalidity or an FTO search can last 24, 48 hours of constantly AI searching, iterating, trying different things, etc. And we have a track of that we can share with clients, again, especially for freedom to operate searches, where they need that trust and they need to see that level of transparency, because they need to make their decisions defensible. And when it comes to code, you say, no, we did our due diligence. We can see exactly how many patents were read across how many CPC codes, what strategies were attempted, etc. And I think that is something that really distinguishes tools that are, you can, as a decision maker at a big organization, defend your position to adopt them if they are transparent and auditable. But if it's just a black box, you don't know where the answer is coming from just because it's doing math and predicting words, then it becomes a lot less, reliable for adoption.
Thank you. Yeah, audibility is definitely a key component in all of this, even with school, because I went back to school starting in 2023. So, of course, ChatGPT had just come to human consciousness. I mean, AI, it's been around for a while, obviously. And the students were using it. And in the beginning, Cornell was like, don't use it. And in less than 12 months, it was use it as you see fit, but include your prompts in anything that you're using it with. So it goes to that audibility really is a source of trust and transparency.
No, you said something, Tiffany, really, really interesting, really exciting about a different type of intellectual property right. Okay. Now, it didn't work, but Australia once upon a time had something called an innovation patent. And you basically just had to do a certification. And then if you wanted to assert it, then you'd have to go through some type of an examination process. It didn't work. That they're not, they discontinued the program, and that's not a thing really anymore. But I think they're on to something with regards to maybe a more limited right, something that begins with a certification and then has a laid out, prioritized mechanism by which an examination could take place. In order to then, if you were actually needing to assert, or if you wanted to license it or something. So I think you're on to something. And I did want to share that there was something where they tried that. And it was designed for small, medium enterprises. So it was designed for SMEs. A company would do it once and then they'd never do it again. And so there were a number of things that came out of it that it just didn't work quite how they expected. But it's a great idea to continue thinking about it and pursuing something that's fit for markets that are 6 months long, a year long, and then all of a sudden everybody's on to the next thing. And do you have any protection? So I applaud you for suggesting it and getting people to think about it.
Oh, thank you very much. I've been thinking about for a few years actually, and spoke to the USPTO and some others. I'm curious. Please keep the microphone for a second. What year did Australia do that? How long ago was it?
Not too long. Within the last 10 years, they just discontinued it in 2025.
Yeah, because, in my imagination, I feel like it's something that we could probably leverage blockchain for. And so maybe afterwards, if you have any contacts there or I can research it, it might be compelling to have this sort of innovation patent leveraging blockchain, so to lower the administrative, effort and cost around it, and to bring more people. It goes to what Bruce was saying during the break or the introduction, to bring more people into the space, because I fundamentally believe that the cure of cancer exists in someone's imagination and one of the 8 billion of us, but we're just not taking them seriously, or they're not taking themselves seriously. And I think something like what you were saying that Australia has done, and I'm a self-made predominantly tech entrepreneur, so to me failure is just like phase 1 or 2 or 3 or 5. It's like you just keep trying until it sticks. I think something like what they've done could be really compelling to realize that vision, and I think it will be as transformative as AI has been in unlocking a lot of innovation in the world.
Ian, I have a question for you. What has the cultural challenges, the changes in culture been like at UK for you? I mean, you're just starting the process of becoming an AI organization, but it's not as simple as just turning on the switch and saying we have these tools. So what are some of the things that go into that?
Yeah, so good question, Bruce. And it's another reason why I think a university is a really interesting, just like, snow globe for this to like study, because we have so many different kinds of people. The challenge is not just what you would imagine. Certainly, we have some people who are just not inclined, object to this, faculty that don't want to change the way that their classroom looks. and all of that is fine. I think the biggest challenge is that we have such a disparity in the inclination of, so we have University of Kentucky, public land grant institution in the state of Kentucky, a lot of students that come from Eastern Kentucky, for example, first generation students. I think it's something like 30% of incoming class is like first generation students from Eastern Kentucky. That's a constituency that is coming in not really, thinking AI is a scary thing, right? And we have a lot of faculty that are also sort of in this same boat. We also have a lot of faculty that are incredibly sophisticated and have been using AI already for years, developing AI, advancing it. And so the challenge is when we think about training, right? You think about training in an organization, you have AI fundamentals, you have AI ethics. Everyone should take these things. Although we have people starting at such different places. I can't offer AI fundamentals to a few hundred of my faculty because they learned that 10 years ago, right? Before we even had generative AI tools. They were creating their own automated tools. So I think for us, we're learning how to create a training hub. We call it the AI Literacy and Training Hub, ALT Hub, where we can offer very different delivery modalities of trainings, from in-person to walk in and ask for technical service. How do I use Copilot better? Just that simple of a question. To other trainings that are focused on sophisticated data use, synthesis, compute power needs, things like that. And just having sort of this roster of trainings at very different inclination levels and levels of sophistication around this. And not every organization might have that disparity, but a university definitely does.
It just occurred to me that, kids growing up today are native in many things that we weren't in my generation, whether it's media or cell phones. What does an AI native look like today? Someone who grew up where AI was part of their landscape and background, and how do they change the way the world runs?
I think I'm not AI native, but I feel like get pretty close to that. I feel like since my undergraduate days, I've been using AI for everything. So I think for me the concept that I think is important for the next generation is the opposite of what a lot of folks in the room and in the IP industry are struggling with, which is like how to make the best use of AI. For my generation, it's how to function better without it, and how to do like a good enough job without having to rely on artificial intelligence, because I think a lot of people my age are over reliant on AI, and one of the most important skills that we can have is our humanity and being able to have soft skills, social skills, talking to people, etc. And that's not something that AI can help you with or do for you. So I think for people who are AI native, and there's a lot of folks out there in Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the most important skill is going to be the opposite, which is learn how to do things without artificial intelligence and learn to tune into your humanity and harness it, because as all skills and all muscles, it's something that the less you take advantage of, the less you use, the smaller it gets and the more it shrinks. So I think that's something that we need to, I don't know when, but at some point we need to emphasize it in schools, which is how to be more human, how to develop more soft skills and put away AI for a little bit. It feels so weird to say, but it's,
Plus 100 on that comment. So right.
David, were you nodding your head about something? Was there something? Okay. Please, Ian.
Just one thing that we're focused. This is the non-intuitive part. Is we're trying to invest more heavily in education, not just around AI and STEM or technical backgrounds, but actually in the soft skills development, the humanities, presenting, understanding human awareness, those kind of things.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think did you?
I was going to say how to be a human 101, right?
Yeah. I was going to say that this is a great place to end on humanity, because I do believe, first off, AI is human-derived intelligence. And secondly, I did a whole talk about this a few years ago with the Federal News Network, that it should be in service to making humans better. That should be our top priority and focus, versus the priority being replacing humans. So I want to thank you all this afternoon. Thank all of you for joining us on the panel. And Bruce?
And thank you, Tiffany and panel. This is a terrific one.
Thank you.
We're recording.